This is the second of a three-part podcast recorded at the Armada House, Sculsowry, Willie Clancy, 2023. Eamonn Cotter, you're very welcome as the second guest on In Conversation here in the Armada House. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're a real legend on the County Clare scene, and it was, I've grown up very close to where you set up home as well. So you were very much part of my upbringing and the name. But when I go back and I listen to all your music, it's really inspiring stuff, and I've been deep diving and looking at other interviews, and a lot of people you've kind of said in a lot of different interviews that fiddle playing,
yes,
it's a massive influence on your flute playing.
Well, I tended to listen to fiddles more than flutes, because I suppose growing up in County Clare, the flute was more associated with, say, Sligo, Roscommon, Leitrim, and up the north. We had Peter O'Loughlin and musicians, flute players like that, but Peter had had moved on to the fiddle. There wasn't an abundance of flute players, but I was very lucky I could get to play with, say, back here you have Bobby Casey, Junior Crehan. You go back to East Clare, you could play with PJ Hayes, Paddy Kenny. There was a lot of
just busting with fiddle players.
There was no end of places to go and without having to go outside the county at all. You at any weekend. Well, will we go West Clare, East Clare, North Clare? You could go up at any time. You could go to Doolin and spend an afternoon with Michael Russell. And maybe stop off on the way home in Ina and sit in and play a tune with Joe Ryan. With Peter O'Loughlin, Paddy Murphy, and Michael Kaler. They used to play on a Sunday night in Ina for years. It's
hard for people to understand how rich Clare is until you grow up there and you really can thrive. And even for me as a young person growing up in Clare, I get all what you're talking about there. You can go north, south, east or west, but you can still play with great musicians nowadays and everywhere.
It works in our favour to a large extent, but in another way then we kind of lacked some of the world experience that other musicians had. So when we'd meet musicians from Dublin, they could talk about Donegal, they could talk about Galway, they could talk about Sligo, Leitrim, Roscommon, they could talk about Cork. We could just talk about Clare, for a long time, because we didn't need to go. Everyone came to Clare.
Yeah.
I was always disappointed in the fact that I never called up to see the music in Ballinhill when I was able to go, when I was young, when it was really thriving,
Yeah.
Paddy Carty was there, and Paddy for me was one of the great flute players,
Yeah.
A very unique style, but I didn't get to, that I didn't just go,
Yeah.
But as I said, we had so much happening here that we kind of got kind of lackadaisical about it,
Yeah. I was also, you're an alumni of St. Flannan's College, and when you were there was a real bustling trad scene there when you were going to school.
Oh yeah, which we were held in high regard. Obviously it's a hurling college, and a very successful one. But the music was also was well regarded there. Father John Hogan was the instigator there back in the probably around 1970, 71 period, and that was around the time of the kind of folk revival, and that's when there was a lot of our generation coming along, the household names like the Kieran Hanron, Mikey Hanron, the Paul Roach, all the Dermot and all the Noel Hill, Tony Lennon. We were all around the same age group, and we were all going to Flannan's, and Father Hogan, who was from I think he's from Crusheen or around there originally, and he was teaching in Flannan's, and he set up the Cayley band there. It was followed on Father John McMahon kept it going afterwards, when Father Hogan left. But we got to travel the countryside. And
was that a big influence on you and grabbing you to really go for the music long term?
It was like, because I mean, I wasn't going to be a hurler, but so you wanted to be in the best team, and the best team was Flannan's College, Kelly Band. That was we won all around us, and we kind of got to travel, and like if we won anything, we got a day off school, like the only thing they gave us uniforms, they were appalling things, but they were kind of like Bonnie sweaters,
Oh, really?
Yeah, not that, but.
Oh, sorry, uniforms for the Cayley Band.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
They were kind of a Bonnie kind of.
So you're like the Clancy and Macomb going around.
Yeah, I think they were blue and white or something. Yeah, it's. Other than that, I mean, it was great times,
Yeah.
We had a great upbringing musically, We had music was our freedom, Like at 13, 14, 15 years of age, I could be out 2-3 nights a week until Modern Gal, but there was no. Our parents kind of trusted us within the music world. We could. There was a great sense of trust,
Yeah. Growing up in Ennis, obviously.
We could go, any weekend we could. They used to have these. There was an awful lot of benefit concerts. That time, Cushnahona they were planning Cushnahona, so there was a lot of benefit concerts. At that time, everything was a benefit concert, but there was no money. There was no talk of money in those days for music. But so we'd be off. We could be back at a concert in Kilrush, Clare, Cree, Tuna, Fecal, Scariff, any weekend for a benefit concert, and like that, it was great fun,
Yeah, it's class. Tell me about Scoilsara Willie Clancy. You're coming here.
Actually, I don't even know how long I'm coming here, but,
really?
but I was very lucky when I started coming here first. I probably didn't come here until I was probably late teenager, because I suppose my parents we didn't come here as, because we were probably going to Flas and that. We were very much involved in Flas when we were young. So I wasn't registered in the school here at any stage, as a student,
Okay.
But I started to come here, in my late teens, early 20s, and we've set up a tent down in the Valley Beach, and go back to Mullock and go to Ollie Conway's in Mullock and go to Gleason's and Coor, where you got to play with Junior Crehan on a Sunday night. Junior and his band. There was 5 or 6 of the old timers there. Michael Downs and those people that used John Joe Tuttle that used to play there.
Straight from the source.
Yeah, so it was a big, especially. Well, I could play there any night over 12 months, but. During the Willie Clancy, it was particularly busy, and you could get any. I remember one night playing there with Ralph McTell came in and sang,
Yeah, the singer,
So.
And you've taught really then on the summer school then?
I've been teaching for a good number of years. I remember this PJ Crotty. I met PJ Crotty, and we had a great flute player, and who passed away a number of years ago. But PJ, we had a great session, and PJ said, "But you should be teaching here, because they didn't have a Clare flute player on the at the time. I don't think on the
really
teaching it didn't. Well, Willie Clancy is very much a kind of a it's not Clare. You have Clare teachers from Clare here, but it's very international, if you know what I mean. As in national, they're from all over the country. There's a Donegal, influences Kerry, So it's not just a Clare style. They're not promoting a Clare style.
Yeah, it's just music in general.
So PJ just suggested I should be on the, I should be teaching here, and I got on. So I'm at it since.
It does, there's a magic in it that people have tried to replicate in other places, but there's a Mecca quality of people going on the journey, going to Willie Clancy Week from all parts of the country, and all finding music and going to Willie Clancy. It's a magic thing.
It is magic, yeah. We take it for granted sometimes, but it is, there's an effort involved in getting here, getting accommodation, getting into classes, getting the right class, getting the right teacher, and having an instrument that functions, for the week.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot involved in, and it's, parents are, to their credit, put in a huge amount of effort to make it happen.
Yeah. Will you participate in playing tunes after the the classes then during the week as well, like?
Well, yeah, you try if you can, but like it's every man for themselves or every musician for themselves. It's it doesn't, like, the hierarchy thing doesn't work. Like, if you're whoever has a seat is in. You know, it's like, dare I say, if Willie came back again, he'd be looking for a seat
sitting on the edge behind the load of our amplifiers.
You know, it's but that's the reality of, you see, there's in a way when I was when we started back in the 70s, like when we were playing, we kind of had it all to ourselves, because we were a kind of a new generation. Because you have to remember when the Willie Clancy started and when the Flaz or Coulter started, even there was a fear that the music was going to die out. There was actually, piping especially, there was a sense that, like, this is the last generation,
Really?
Yeah. People forget that now, but that the music was in danger of going, because what happened in the 60s, you had new technology, you had TV, and people were going to hear, they were more interested in listening to the,
show bands.
The show bands and, the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or whatever. So Irish music, it was very much on in it, was under threat. But and then what happened then, of course, in Sean O'Reilly, kind of 1966, the 50th commemoration of the 1916, he created this Michera, the music, and that revitalised the whole traditional music scene, and brought a sense of, I suppose, pride in the music, but also, you had the same in America with the folk music. So there was a folk boom around the world, really, but and then we were that generation that benefited. And really, what happened in Ennis, which was kind of unique in its time to see, we were all urban kids, like, we weren't rural kids, like, we were
up in town, like,
we grew up in town, like, we weren't smart alecky young kids, like, but we did. What happened was that through Seamus McMahon and Cortes, they set up a pilot scheme with the VEC to set up a music class where people would come and do a night class and learn the tin whistle, or in a group, big groups,
Yeah.
Now, Jack Mulcair was involved, Brendan McMahon was involved. So there was your teachers would come in and teach the whistle to a big group of young kids.
Is this your first experience?
That was my first experience. Yeah, I played piano before that. My mother was a piano teacher.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'd been playing piano, but so I learned to play the whistle when I was 8 or 9 years of age, and there was a big crowd of us at it.
Was there anyone else in that class that continued playing whistle?
Oh, this was Paul Roach, I suppose. Yeah. I think Christy Barry was there.
Really?
Yeah, there was a whole. I'm trying to think of everyone you can think of was there, and most of Marion McMahon, my sister Geraldine, of course. There was, could be 20 or 30 in the class, but most of us kind of stuck with the music. We kind of, there was Peter Skerritt, Oliver Skerritt.
Yeah.
There was who else? There was. We were very lucky,
It's amazing how those little sparks can ignite.
But it was just one of these. It was one of these kind of. It was a new concept, believe it or not. The idea that you would teach music in a kind of in a structured way, because before that, music was just kind of handed down. You got an instrument, and you might be lucky if someone would.
Okay.
Show you something,
Okay.
Like Peter O'Loughlin wouldn't have gone to a music class, or Yuri Doohan or Paddy Murphy, or they kind of hung off someone's coattails, maybe, just to, same as Willie Clancy would have. I think they used to have races here in Spanish Point on the beach, and the Dorans used to come, and Willie used to go out there and he'd like just listen. That was just the way. There was no formal. Systematic way of teaching, but this was a new concept, and Clare Ennis is where they tried it first, and then they replicated it everywhere else then after that. But so we were the beneficiaries, But it was just a kind of a simple enough idea, but it worked, So we all kind of, and then we all evolved onto different instruments after that,
Yeah. So it was Geraldine and your other siblings in that start as well?
Like not everyone stuck with it to this. Everyone was still involved in everyone that was there obviously has still kind of listening, and not, but some are more involved than others, you know.
Yeah. Great memories of your brother in the Not Accord as well. I used to love buying CDs. My first CDs I probably bought from him. He was a great lover of music, and
he was, and you know, he put a lot of thought and effort into that, you know.
He did.
He was very dedicated, you know. It was unfortunate that, you know, that he passed away so soon, you know, but so I suppose that's life, you know.
That is life, yeah. I was only chatting with John Lynch from the Kilfenora, and it's amazing about like music, and you can have all these experiences, and we all go through all these same experiences, and he was talking about the group dynamic, but it's kind of, he was talking about the rhythm in Kilfenora music, and the way it's there's not as many ornaments because there's a group mentality, but like in a lot of the different fiddle players you've mentioned now, and they would have a lot more focus on ornamentation.
Yeah, well, I suppose in the county, there's, you think just the county of Clare alone, you have such a different, you have so many different styles of playing. You know, like Michael Russell had a unique style of playing. Very, you know, people underestimated his style at the time, but it was so unique. You know, he was a huge star. He was big in in Europe, like
Germany.
He pulled 5,000 people in a theatre, like, you know, which is extraordinary for a man playing a tin whistle and a flute and just telling stories, you know. But he was a real showman. But you had like of course, the two big bands in Clare at the time were Tulla and the Kilfenora. There's a huge difference between both. I've played with both bands, so I can.
Have you?
Oh yeah. Well, I travelled with the Tulla back in my first time in England was with the Tulla. We played in I played in the Galtymore and the Gresham and the National and all those places back in the 70s. I think it was around 78. I think
they were all first generation immigrants that had gone over to England.
Yeah, I remember playing the Galtymore there was a couple of thousand people to see the Tulla. Like, well, that would be a normal crowd on a Saturday or Sunday night.
Was that a Cayley?
It was a Cayley, but the Tulla had been in London. They had been to England probably 63, I think. You know, no, the band in 63 probably consisted of Peter O'Loughlin and Kenny and PJ Hayes and. Cooley could have been there. I'm not quite sure.
Really?
Yeah, could have been Cooley. He had played with them, so I'm not sure whether he was there or not. But I remember coming off the stage in, I think it was 78, and this guy came up to me. He says, "Where's Peter O'Loughlin?" You know, Peter hadn't been on that trip. Like, you know. He was looking for the same band that was there in 63. You know, and he's where's Joe Cooley? I said, I'm sorry to say, before Joe passed away, you know, a number of years. But it's just he was looking for the same band.
Exactly.
But bands are always evolved anyway, you know. Yeah. So, but that was.
Tell me about your own journey then with Shaskeen.
Shaskeen then would have been, I suppose, 89 before my first daughter Granny was born. You know, Tom Cusson rang me on a Christmas in 89 to know what I played. It's just over the Christmas. Sean Keane, you know, from Carlos Strand had been with the band for a couple of years, so he had moved on to, I think, Arcadia. I think so.
Oh yeah.
And so they needed a flute player for the Christmas. So I stepped in. There's 13 nights over Christmas.
Flute players not just for Christmas.
Yeah, but I'm still there, you know. So that was. And like we tour a good bit, like we were a busy band in those days, you know. It was kind of people. It's not like now we have a big. The band is twice the size of. I mean, we have 8 people now in the band, but in those days it was just a bare 5, and like it was very functional. Like, you know, like in those days there was nothing fancy about it. These weren't theatres or like there was really kind of lounge bars and. Big lounge bars, and
that was the style, I suppose.
And, you know that was. But you'd be out 2, 3, 4 nights a week. You know.
Yeah.
You could be in Sligo, you could be down in Kerry and back up to Galway, and you know, we were young, wouldn't take it much north. But as I said, someone said one time we have no roads, but we have gigs. No, we have the roads. We have
no gigs.
It's not quite as bad as that, but it has definitely the world has changed. That world has changed, you know.
Yeah. So then you had a deep interest in engineering coming from your father, I suppose, and then flute making started to become a very serious hobby for you.
Well, yeah. Well, I suppose I started welding at 8 or 9 years of age. My father had a welding, a kind of small engineering business, you know.
Yeah.
And I was kind of attracted to that because I'd go in there after school. We had a workshop in Ennis, and I'd go straight from school down to my father's workshop, and there was a blacksmith next door, and I'd be inside putting smoke, and there was a bellows, and I'd be swinging off the bellows.
Yeah.
They took no notice to me, and so I had the run of the place, and I enjoyed that. For me, industry is all about smoke and noise and dirt and banging and noise. You know, I'm not a big fan of the industry. Industry for me, my concept of industry is always has to be kind of, like Victorian 19th century image of it. You know, but so I just hung out there, and my father was a great influence on me. But no, I didn't. I kind of stuck with him for years. We kind of, I inherited that business afterwards, and I moved it out to Kilmaley. But at the same time, I was following music, and I was studying music, and I studied classical music in the School of Music in Limerick. And I suppose I could have been a contender, but if I stuck with it, but life takes its turns.
Yeah.
I did a diploma with the London College. Now, one of the reasons I went into classical music was I've always had an interest in classical music, but also I wanted to learn how to play the flute, because I got a flute when I was 15.
Yeah.
You know, but getting an instrument is one thing, and I knew how to play music.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know how to play the instrument, because you have to remember that, like, to play, you learn how to play music and you learn how to play an instrument.
Yeah.
There's a physicality involved in playing an instrument.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, it's about posture. It's about
you're talking about technique and embouchure and everything.
All that, to see. So you were never going to learn that, by just playing tunes. You had to. So I reckon the only way I was going to learn the flute was to go to a flute teacher.
Right.
So you had no flute teachers, and people didn't have teachers. If you go to any of the classes now, when you talk to students, young students, first question, who's teaching you? Mm-hmm. And everyone is a teacher.
Yeah.
They're going to John Kelly. It doesn't matter. They have, or if they're fiddle players, they could be going to Siobhan Peoples. But it does. There was no.
Yeah. So your education was all over the place, trying to figure out.
So I remember going when I eventually got into the School of Music in Limerick. There was the flute teacher at the time was John Parrott, and he was old school, and I walked in and I picked up the flute. And
you were playing the timber flute.
I was playing a timber, but I had to get a straight away. I had to get a silver flute, which was fine, But he spent about months and months straightening me out,
Really?
Yeah, he was like a chiropractor, getting the big, But it has stood to me. That's why I'm amazed by when I got to see Matt Malloy here at the Willie Clancy. He performed at the flute recital, and you have to see his technique. His technique is perfect. His posture is perfect. I often wonder how he came on that, because it's not a, because most flute players of my generation and older had all sorts of contorted ways of playing flutes.
Down on the shoulder and sideways.
I was probably a bit that way until I went in and he straightened me out, But I did learn an awful lot through the technique. Is whether it's in anything in life, whether it's a game of golf or hurling or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a technique it will carry you.
Yeah,
it has carried me, because moving on a bit, but it has when I play now, it's fatigue isn't the thing boredom is probably more than fatigue.
Boredom comes in, sets in
for the fatigue, But
was there a point then learning classical music where you felt like, okay, it brings me to a certain point, and this is not as relevant really to the trad music and the rhythm that you're blowing into the flute? So.
Well, I adapted techniques from it, in terms of articulation that I've that has worked for me now, but it's seen probably with a lot of flute players maybe not quite traditional, There's a kind of a, there's a kind of a, when you play a flute, you have to emphasize notes, you have to be able to repeat notes or whatever, and whatever way you do it. For me, I use what they call tonguing, which is a kind of a classical technique, and but most flute players would use the glottal stop. It would use a throat, So I had to get out of that habit. So your man John, my flute teacher, kind of knocked that out of me,
Can you see it more coming into kind of tonguing, and people are kind of coming around a bit more to kind of a uniform technique, or is it?
Well, there still isn't uniformity in any of the teachers. In traditional, in classical music, there is one way,
completely,
and there is one way, and there's very little variation between, say, a musician from Japan or a musician from Seattle. There's no, but in traditional music, you have like teachers will emphasize certain things. Certain teachers will have influences. A good teacher might have 20 or 30 students in a county.
Yeah.
And they might start teaching themselves in years to come. And so there's a kind of certain trends will come in.
I picked up the phone to you this morning and I said, well, Eamonn, what's the crack? And you were like, oh God, don't use that word when you pick up the phone in emergency to me.
It's like the Scottish play. You don't mention the Scottish play, But
you don't mention the what?
The Scottish play. Do you ever Backbait?
Oh, Oh, it's the curse.
Yeah.
Because you were afraid I was going to ring you and say I have a crack in my flute.
If there was a crack in the bore on, no, I wouldn't be crying.
There'd be grand, a bit of tape, not about it. How many flutes do you reckon you have? Have gone through your hands in your life?
It's hard to know. I suppose I'd have to. I'm nearly 30 years at it.
Really?
Yeah. But I suppose to go back to my father, I'd have to credit him, because well, see, the engineering business we did a bit of everything. People came in, they wanted something made. It didn't matter what it was. You made it. Because you were open for business. So my father loved the challenge.
Yeah.
So he had a kind of a blind optimism, nothing would faze him, So I came home at one stage. I bought a lathe. I did a job for Clare County Council, and I got when I got paid. I said it was a nice check at the time, and I said I must buy a machine, just have something, And I bought a lathe, and it was in the workshop for about a year, covered with a canvas. And one evening I said, geez, I must start this up and see how does it go, how it works, And I became fascinated by it. And then one evening I said, geez, I should try and make a flute, And I kind of announced, I rang my father, I said, I think I'll go make a flute. Why not, he said,
Yeah.
But see, that's kind of the blind, stupid...
It's the only way.
Stupid optimism, only mad people would do things like that, think that you can... But you see, that was just a follow-on. This is just another job. To my father, this is, okay, probably built a trailer last week, he'll fill the flute this week,
Yeah.
It was a kind of a... my father was a very good engineer because he was in the Air Corps. He went to Baldonnel in 1945 and he studied, he was an aircraft mechanic and he was a sergeant. He came out in the 50s. So after he spent a good number of years in the Air Corps, so he had a very good apprenticeship. Most of his colleagues would have gone into Aer Lingus, would have been high flyers with Aer Lingus, at the time, And so he had nothing would faze him, and that kind of rubbed off for me to an extent,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been half as talented as he was, as he had.
But sure, he didn't play the flute like you played the flute.
And I suppose what's required for what's required to make any instrument. First of all, I suppose you need to be able to play it.
Yeah.
And second of all, you have to just dogged determination to just persevere and just and when people tell you, well, that's the way I am anyway. So people tell me you can't do something, that's the time I'll.
Has there been lots of changes in actual flute making over the years?
I think so, but it's all been kind of very subtle changes,
Yeah.
The technology is there, of course. We have technology now that the Victorians didn't have.
Yeah.
The Ruddle and Rose wouldn't have had the gear, Well, I'm still hands-on. I don't have any computerized machines or anything like that. It's just all kind of old machines. I like those old. Most of the machines I have are rejected machines from, say, the schools, the English school, technical school, kind of scene, because what has happened in the last 20, 30 years is the health and safety. So they've replaced some of the beautiful old machines with new, say, Chinese machines that had more bells and more safety. Aspects. But I mean, you're never completely safe with you know, you just to be very careful with machines, with blades and that side thing.
Yeah.
The flute making it's been the ideal. It's been the ideal complement to playing music, because you see, I as much as I enjoy playing music, I wouldn't like to be full time. I wouldn't like to be on the road full time. You know, especially nowadays. It's I mean, travel, as you know yourself, you travel a lot. Like, I mean, airports, trains, planes, automobiles. It's a big drag now. You know.
Yeah.
Because in the earlier days, like, you didn't have to take off your shoes and, you know,
there was a bit of glamour involved.
Take off your belt, like, no, you waited at the bar. If you were flying, like, you waited at the bar and someone would come down and tell you your flight is ready to go, and you just walked on, you know.
Yeah, I love seeing those old photos.
And you know, you can send down. We'll have more of that stuff in the small bottle, you know. And if you knew someone, any of the air hostesses, like, you'd get a bag of them going out to.
Yeah.
I know. No, there was glamour in it. Like, no, I mean, the days of Shaskeen going out in you know, 5 lads sitting into the back of a high-ace van and going off to England for 2 or 3 weeks was there was much glamour in that. No, you know? After 3 weeks in a van, you know, things can get a bit can get a bit messy, you know.
Yeah. Do you think have you any future ideas for recording more music?
I suppose recording is I have 2 albums out, like, you know, and maybe I've nothing at the moment, you know. I suppose, to some extent, you see, I suppose, as you know, with CDs, like, they're really, the market for CDs is, you know, young people don't buy CDs, you know, and everything's is uploaded and downloaded,
it's the business is over.
So
for CDs,
it's a bit in terms of a business. If you're thinking about it in terms of, you know, well, this is going to cost so much, and I should be able to, make that up, you know, with sales.
Yeah,
that day is gone, really. But what a lot of people do now, they're very lucky if you can get a grant from the Arts Council or something like that. But again, you have to have an angle too. It's not just a question of going in.
Geraldine has a new album out.
Yeah, which is a very good album, and it's a lot of her own compositions, you know.
Yeah.
But there's an awful lot of I wouldn't have any great interest in just doing a standard album. No, it'd have to be some angle.
Yeah,
it'd have to be new. I'd have to compose some tunes and get some of my jazz friends to join me without overdoing it. Like, you know, at this stage, you see, in my life, I feel I have served my time. You know, that if I indulge myself, that I think I'm entitled to it. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I've done my. You know,
you've given.
I still play. I mean, obviously, when I play music, I play it straight.
Yeah.
And I try not to disrespect the music that I've been given. You know, because when I think of the music, I think of Sonny Murray and Peter O'Loughlin and all those people that and Sean Reid, all the people that were very helpful and were they were very respectful of the music side, so I feel I should be the same, you know.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it, like, because it keeps you really on the line of what's gone before you.
But you also have an obligation, like, to kind of give it your own, you know. Like, I'm not, you know,
obviously I'm not the classical music.
Influence that as well, but you have to kind of give it. Each generation should put their own mark on the music, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, well and good. You mimic when you're young, you know. You mimic and you try and replicate what you hear, you know.
Yeah.
But you get to the stage, you certainly, when you, as an adult, you know, you should be trying to create your own sound, your own, you know, whatever you have to put in. Your personality will reflect in your music anyway.
Do you do you listen to a lot of other flute players nowadays?
I would, like, I mean, you know, I would. but again, it's mostly fiddle players. You know, you kind of attract,
It's such an interesting thing because I've heard so many people talk about that before. Like, it's nearly always.
I don't have a flute style. To an extent, I don't have a flute style because I was so much influenced by fiddles because I grew up with fiddles and concertinas. They were the instruments.
Yeah.
So I wasn't kind of surrounded by flutes, and I didn't kind of develop that kind of northern kind of heavy. The style, that's a kind of heavy style. It was very much kind of a legato. It was kind of, you were trying to fit in with the music. You know, whether it's an East Clare would have been maybe a bit more slower. Not always, but you know, it tended to be a bit more slower, and you kind of tried to fit in with that. But if you went in with this kind of punctuated flute style, you know, it wouldn't have fitted with the music, and probably socially would have been, you know, you could have been. It would have been out of context, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, your music reflects what you hear, you know, or where you're from.
Yeah. Was it always just silver flute that you played jazz music with?
Yeah. I do a small bit on the E flat now and again, you know, within the
tradition of jazz.
Within with the jazz people I play with, you know.
Yeah.
But it's because the reason for the E flat is because it's a lot of the jazz is in B flat and F, you know, for tenor sax and you know, so it's easier to play in E flat than in a concert, you know. But I like the idea of improvisation, you know.
Yeah.
It's always been I've always been fascinated by the idea that people will just, you know, have kind of a free expression in music, you know. You know, it's completely different from traditional music. Now, there is a certain amount of improvisation in traditional music. We do it very subtly. We do it kind of subconsciously, or it's part of the music. You know, like you get 4 or 5 musicians playing together. When you know, if you get Frankie Gav and Martin O'Connor playing together, like, there's an improvisation going on there, but you don't think of it as improvisation. Both of them are playing the same tune, but they're playing different versions of the same tune.
Yes.
And they're looping around each other. And it's not kind of 16-bar solos. It's like you'd have in or you know, long solos. But it's a
great example of it, actually.
Yeah, you know, but it does. You know, it does exist in traditional music, but it's not as obvious. You know.
Yeah.
But it happens very organically, you know.
Yeah. Eamonn, thank you very much for the chat, and thanks for taking the time out to chat to me.
I'm delighted to be here. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.